بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا مزيدا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. This is our 13th class on the chapter of fasting from Zaad al Mustaqni, and we left off at the statement وَإِنَّ وَحَاضِرٌ صَوْمَ يَوْمٍ ثُمَّ سَافَرَ فِي أَثْنَائِهِ فَلَهُ الْفِطْرِ. If someone is resident and he intends on fasting, his intention is to fast on a certain day, but then he changes his mind and goes on a journey, he can break his fast. That's the opinion of the author in the Hanbali madhab. Let me give you the scenario. You're home on a normal day of Ramadan. You're not expecting to travel. You're fasting. A brother comes to your house and he says, there's a lecture in the nearby state or a city at the travel distance of a travel, and you go. Can you break your fast since you already intended and started your fast? According to the author, yes. There's three scenarios that pertain to this matter. The first scenario is Ramadan starts while you're traveling. You traveled 5 days before Ramadan, 10 days before Ramadan, 25th of Sha'ban, or a day before Ramadan. Ramadan starts while you're traveling. Then you can break your fast because the verse clearly applies to you. It's by ijma'. أو على سفر, the verse clearly applies to you. The second scenario, if the person travels during the night of Ramadan, the times we eat and drink in between Maghrib and Fajr, he travels there before he initiated the intention. He can break his fast the following day according to the overwhelming majority of the ulama, with a slight dispute because the verse applies to him. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمْ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. There's a very weak opinion that if Ramadan starts while you're a resident and you travel after that, you cannot break your fast. Allah said, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. If you witness the month, then fast. He witnessed Ramadan as a resident, he can break his fast. He's stuck. However, that's very weak understanding, and that opposes the clear hadith and also the verse itself. The third, so it's not a strong opinion at all. The third scenario is what the author was talking about. You're traveling during the day. The night before you intended on fasting. Your friend comes to you and door says, let's travel. In the first scenario, we said he traveled before the month of Ramadan even started, and he continued in his travel 5, 10, 20 days after Ramadan. Then he has the right to break his fast during the journey. The second is if he travels at nighttime. We said he can break his fast the following day. This is if he intended and started his fast. Some may think it's an open and shut case, but it's really disputed by the ulama. In fact, there's two opinions by Imam Ahmad himself. The first opinion is the opinion that the author chose, and that he can break his fast. And it's the correct opinion, and it's the madhab of the Hanabila. The second opinion, and it's the majority opinion, and it's the weaker of the two, it's a second opinion by Imam Ahmad, and it's a supposed saying by Malik and Shafi'i and Ashab al-Ra'i, that if someone intended on fasting and he fasted during the day, then he cannot break his fast if he travels on that day. They said he started fasting as a resident. He traveled. So this is the issue that combines between traveling and resident. Therefore, they said we'll give the resident aspect more weight. He must continue traveling because he must continue fasting because he initiated the niyyah. They said this is the salah, like salah. When you travel, you can shorten and combine. Let's assume someone returned home from a journey and he didn't make his isha while traveling. He delayed his isha until he got home. There's a resident aspect to it and a traveler aspect. Had he did it while he was traveling, he makes it only 2. He delayed it until he got home, he makes it 4. While traveling, you can combine and shorten. You didn't make Isha until you returned home. Do you shorten at home? It's a resident in travel aspect to that matter. Do we say he was traveling and give that more weight? And say his salah time started while he was on a journey, so now that he's home he can shorten? Or do we say now that he's home, he's a resident and he can no longer shorten? Their point of this is that there's a resident aspect and a traveler aspect in this scenario. And we all agree, they say, that when one is in that kind of scenario, he must pray the Isha due to giving more weight to the resident aspect. They say we do the same here. We give the resident status more weight in fasting as well. If he initiated his fast while a resident, then he can break it after he travels. That's their opinion. Ibn Kathir chose the correct opinion, and he mentioned it strongly under the verse, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whoever witnesses the month, he must fast. And he summed it up very good. But before we go on, you may have gotten lost as to what the situation is. Someone made niyyah to fast in Ramadan. Then he started fasting. Then decided to travel. The first and correct opinion by Imam Ahmad is that he breaks, in the Hanbali madhab, is that he can break his fast. The second opinion, the majority, say you cannot break your fast. Ibn Kathir, now commenting on the verse, said the opinion by the majority, which shows you the majority is not always right. He said that's a very odd opinion relayed by Ibn Hazm. Ibn Kathir said the Jumhur claim a group of Sahaba and Tabi'een had adopted this opinion. And he went on to say that there's plenty of doubt in their claim. The correct opinion is what the author chose, that if you made the niyyah to travel, then you decided to travel during the day after you initiated your travel, you can break your fast, and it's backed by proof. Ibn al-Qayyim chose it, and he said it's the madhab of Abu Hanifa and al-Shafi'i, even though there's a dispute on what's the official opinion of Abu Hanifa and al-Shafi'i in this matter. Now, why is it correct? Because Allah said, أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. That's the first one. On a journey, if you're traveling, whether you initiated your niyyah or started your fast, that doesn't matter. That's not a stipulation in the verse. Allah said, if you're on a journey. Once you're on a journey, you're exempted. Number two, because it was narrated by many Sahaba that they did this. Number three, and most importantly, is the hadith that we took in Bukhari and Muslim. When the Messenger ﷺ went to the conquest of Mecca, he left in Ramadan. And it appears that he planned to fast the entire day from the story. He must have seen it difficult on the Sahaba. After he reached a town outside of Medina, he asked for a cup of water and he elevated it so everybody can see that he had a cup of water in his hand. And then he drank from it. The Sahaba broke their fast, and the ones who didn't were reprimanded strongly by the Messenger ﷺ, who took that hadith. The Messenger initiated ﷺ the travel, and he of course had the intention and broke it during the journey. So that shows if you fast on a day of Ramadan and you travel, you can break your fast. The response to the group that said there's a resident and a traveler aspect to that, will give the resident more weight to it, so he must continue fasting. The answer to that is that that's beautiful rationale, and it shows you how the ulama think. But when there's proof, we reject rationale. There's no room for ideas and opinions when there's textual proof, and there is. Now another issue. If one is permitted to eat and drink in his travel, as we established during his journey, then can he also have sexual relationship with his wife, or do we say just you can eat and drink during your travel? The answer is, of course, he can have sexual relationship, because once he's permitted to break his fast, the other halal matters are permitted as well. When can one start eating? The overwhelming majority of the ulama say once one passes his towns and neighborhood, he can start eating, because Allah said, أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, on a journey. So you need to be on the journey, you need to initiate it before you can break your fast. This is the opinion of the great vast majority of the ulama, and it's the correct opinion, and it's what you see in the hadith of the Messenger ﷺ. He didn't break his fast until he left Medina. The second opinion is by Al-Hasan al-Basri and Ata, and they said one can eat in his house before he leaves on a journey if he truly intends on traveling. The intention itself is sufficient. if it's a determined intention to travel. They use the hadith in At-Tirmidhi by Muhammad ibn Ka'ab that he said, I prepared a camel for Anas ibn Malik radiallahu an. I loaded the luggage on it, and then Anas ibn Malik asked for food and he ate. He ate, seems like, before he left. Ibn Abd al-Barr responded to that and he said, that opinion goes against the clear verse, أو على سفر, or on a journey. And he hasn't initiated the journey. The verse implies that you have to be on a journey. Did the verse say in his residence or on a journey? It said on a journey, على سفر. They said this is just like shortening your salah. The same way you can't shorten your salah before you leave your house, you can't break your fast before you leave your house. You need to initiate the journey, clear away from your city or village, and then you can break your fast and shorten and combine. Other ulama responded to Anas ibn Malik's hadith, radiallahu an, or athar. They said, we don't even have proof that Anas ibn Malik was in his hometown. It might have been that he was visiting. He was in the midst of his journey, and they prepared his camel for him while he was on his journey. The narration doesn't say that he was in his hometown before he left. That might have been just a rest area where he was at. He was possibly in the middle of his journey. So the author is not clear. The author has ta'wil, so we resort to the clear ayah in the overwhelming majority of the ulama, what they said. What supports that is also what's in Sunan Abu Dawood. Ubayd ibn Jubair, rahimahullah, said, I rode on a journey with Abu Bakr al-Ghafari. Abu Bakr al-Ghafari is a Sahabi. He said, we traveled in Egypt, and I brought Abu Bakr some food. Abu Bakr said, can't you see those homes? You disobey the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah. Abu Bakr, a Sahabi, refused to eat until they left the town. And he considered that the sunnah, that you must leave the town. You can't be at an eye distance from where you're resident of. So in summary, if you decide to break your fast on a journey, you need to leave your city, your town. You need to clear away from that neighborhood or town or city. There needs to be an initiation of the journey before you can break your fast. And there's strong textual proof on that. The hadith of the Messenger ﷺ in the conquest of Mecca. The story of Anas is not clear because he may have been on a journey. And if so, even so, there's another Sahabi, Abu Bakr, who contradicted what Anas radiallahu anh supposedly, allegedly did. But even though the story of Anas is not very clear, it has ta'wil to it. And now let's take a pregnant and a nursing woman. Let's quickly go over a pregnant and nursing woman. وَإِنْ أَفْطَرَتْ حَامِلٌ أَوْ مُرْضِعٌ خَوْفًا عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمَا قَضَتَاهُ فَقَطْ. A pregnant or breastfeeding woman who breaks the fast for fear of herself must only make up that day. That's all she needs to do. So we took so far in the past days the ruling for those who are weak and elders. Then we took those with incurable illnesses, similar to number one. Then we took curable illnesses. Then we took travelers. And now the fifth one is pregnant, and the sixth one is nursing woman. Or you can consider 5 and 6 as number 5. When pregnancy or nursing is difficult or creates hardship on a woman or her infant, she's permitted to break her fast. And the same applies if it even just merely slows the nourishment of the infant. The author first states that if it's a pregnant woman and she fears over herself, all she has to do is make up the days. It's like an ill person. She's very similar to an ill person who will be cured. She takes the status of a person who has a curable illness. فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. You make up the days. If it's imminent danger or hardship on her or her son, she must break her fast. The verse applies, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. What we talk about when we mentioned the traveler, ill person who may travel and it may cause him death or near death or extreme hardship, and we said he must break his fast, the same applies here. The author said faqat over here in this statement, meaning all she needs to do is she needs to break her fast. If she fears for herself, that's all she needs to do. Faqat only is a hint that there's a different ruling that's about to come that pertains to a similar scenario where it's not going to be faqat. It's going to be something additional to that. There's a near ijma' on this issue with a very minor dispute with no proof that's not even considered a legitimate dispute worthy. That's why many fiqh books don't even mention it. So all she has to do is make up that day. The next situation is the next statement of the author. وَعَلَى وَلَدَيْهِمَا قَضَتَا وَأَطْعَمَتَا لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا. If she broke her fast out of fear over the child now, she makes it up and gives food to a poor person for each day she missed. What's the difference between this and the previous scenario? The last one, she feared over herself only. She only makes up the days that she missed. Now she fears over herself and over her child. She makes up the days that she missed, and she feeds a poor person for every single day that she missed. Making up the fast, whether it's fear over herself or over the child, she has to do that. That is فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. Now what's disputed is that feeding a poor person. And let's take the scenarios. Let's take it with scenarios, and that way you'll remember it when you're asked about this in the future, inshallah. The first one is, if she breaks her fast, the first scenario, if she breaks her fast over fear over herself, whether it's pregnancy or nursing, she only makes up. No compensation needed. The second one is, if she fears over her baby only, if she fears over her baby only, and it doesn't matter whether she's nursing or pregnant, the ruling is she feeds and she makes up the missed days. We need two proofs for that. We need first a proof for making up the day and a second for compensating. So they said for making up the day, it's simple. The verse, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ, compensate with days after Ramadan. The second, for compensating a poor person, they said she's breaking her fast for the sake of someone else. So she needs to compensate and give a poor person. In Sunan Abu Dawood, Ibn Abbas said, in a very similar statement, Ad-Daraqutni said that Ibn Umar, attribute that statement to Ibn Umar. It's the verse, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. For those who can fast, they have a choice. They either feed a miskin, a poor person, or they fast. Ibn Abbas said that's for the weak, elder, or woman. Or he said a pregnant, nursing woman, a pregnant, or a nursing woman. So all that falls under that verse. The third scenario, so the first scenario, let's backtrack. If she breaks for fear over herself, whether it's pregnancy or nursing, she only makes up the days. For fear over the baby, she pays a poor person each day and makes up the day. Now if she breaks the fast, the third scenario, for fear over herself and over her baby. This is very greatly disputed and closely disputed as well. The Hanabila and Hanafiya said the first opinion is that it's possibly the one closer to being the correct one. This scenario, she fears over herself and over the baby. We'll give more weight to her fear over herself. So we'll consider it like the first scenario. Based on that ruling, all she has to do is make up the days, because they gave more weight to her fearing over herself. The second opinion is by Imam Malik and Al-Layth rahimahumullah. They said you don't make up the day, you pay a poor person for each day. Inna Allah wada'a as-siyam 'an al-hubla wal-murdi'. They used the hadith in Sunan Ahmad that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Allah lifted the duty of siyam from one nursing and pregnant. They also said, Ibn Abbas, when he mentioned the interpretation of the verse, that a woman who's nursing or a pregnant woman, and she compensates for each day, like he said about the weak elder and the one with terminal illness, he never stated to make up. All he said was compensate. The third opinion on this is, it's a choice. You either feed or you fast. It's whatever you want to do. Out of those three, possibly the more correct opinion would be if a woman fears over herself and over her infant, whether it's nursing or pregnancy, she just makes it up, because in reality she compares to the status of one ill or traveling or one who is on her menstrual cycle or postnatal bleeding. That's why I tend to lean to this opinion. She really compares to that, and her status is very similar to that. She resembles that more than she would weak in an elder or someone with an incurable illness. Now, as to the response to the hadith that they used in Musnad Ahmad, that Allah has lifted the duty of fasting on a pregnant woman or a nursing woman, it doesn't mean lifted the duty forever. It means while they're in that status, just like someone who's a curable illness or traveling. In that status, they don't have to fast, but they have to make it up. That's what the hadith means. This matter is closely disputed because there's no clear proof on this matter. Now, a final note before we end. The author's statement seems to imply that the compensation for the poor is the duty of the mother. Actually, the statement we read is actually clear on that. That's what he seems to indicate. But the correct opinion is the responsibility of paying for the poor when a woman is nursing or pregnant. The responsibility of paying for the poor is the guardian of the baby. And usually, of course, that's the father. We'll conclude with this. We'll have a few minutes of questions.